Hello, 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 and welcome to Rainbows Rising, where we ascend together. This is the podcast where we alchemize pain into power and awaken the sovereign within. I'm Rainbow Raja, shamanic healer, transformational guide, and your companion on ascension. Here, we don't bypass the dark night of the soul, we move through it. We explore energy, consciousness, and the unseen forces that shape your reality so that you can reclaim your voice, your truth, your gifts, your power, and your path. This month, we are going to be talking about, well, one of the most mundane forces of our reality, the physical world. We are pretty well aware of the physical world since we all exist here. But what isn't always explored about our physical world is the different layers that make up our physical world. Growing up, we were all told that the earth is this big round ball, that we all evolved, and through this biological evolution, that we are all these monkey descendants, which may or may not be true. I do not claim to know. But what I do know is that there are a lot of forces and energies and things that are happening beyond what our eyes can see. And so in this particular season of the show, I am going to be breaking down the different layers of our reality and explaining to you what is kind of happening on these other layers. But here in the physical, we have objects that are tangible. We've got tangible things. We have tables, we have chairs, we have our physical bodies, we have crystals, we've got trees. The physical world is where we can touch matter. The physical world is where matter matters. So here in the physical plane, anything that we can touch or see is comprised of matter. And I'm not a scientist and I don't claim to know what's going on with science. All I know is that pretty much everything is made of atoms. And in order for objects to have form, those atoms have to move and oscillate and wiggle. And that is what gives them form in our reality. Their oscillation of like their ability to wiggle and jiggle, and that's what gives them form in our reality. In the physical world, we are more than matter, which is how we have emotions, we have thoughts, we have connections to humans, we've got dreams. If we were only physical matter, dreams would not be possible. Creation outside of our known reality would not be possible. If we're able to create something that has not been experienced, that is proof that there is something beyond this physical experience. Dreams are somewhat correlated with that. There are many, many people on this planet that experience telepathy with animals. They've had visions of their past loved ones. They've had premonitions of events that were to come. They have played with fairies or were able to interact with God and angels. There have been numerous experiences. Most people have at least one mystical, magical experience to tell about, where they questioned, is reality really what it seems? Our physical reality has been presented to us. It was ingrained in us from as early as our childhood. We were told what history was by other people who were told what history was. And although that is how history is passed, what we believe our reality is how we shape our interaction with reality. So when we are discouraged as children to having imaginations, people with imaginary friends, people who could see the little people in the grasses, a lot of children are discouraged from encouraging those interactions. Religious folk whose children can see spirits shame them and tell them, you cannot talk to spirits, because they're fearful of that. But that is separating, which are physical bodies filled with spiritual material that navigate us through the world. By severing our connection to spirit, we are also severing our connection to source. So here on this show, I'm hoping to utilize the information that is being channeled to me to share with you about the physical realm so that you might be able to play around with these ideas, to keep these concepts in your mind throughout this month, and do your best to stretch the realms of your perception of reality with me. Please stretch what you believe is possible with me. So for those who are watching this on YouTube, I do have some visuals to go with what I'm about to explain. For those who are not watching on YouTube and are listening on one of the podcast apps, don't worry, I will do my best to explain. The best way that I can describe our physical plane, separate from the other layers of reality we will be covering, is on this physical plane. This is just it's the structure to house the energies that will interact. So the physical plane is like the dollhouse. It is just the structure to give us a playground to play in. The physical plane is the location in which we are experiencing touch, taste, smell, sight, being able to communicate, to sense each other, to whatever. All of the things that being physical allows us to do. But in this physical plane, there are other realms that overlap our plane, like sheets on a bed. And I will show a perfect example next week, because I was just shown how I can show this. So I will show this next week when we start to actually apply some of these practices to help you be able to manipulate your physical realm and play with the conscious universe a little bit. But for now, just imagine those other realms are sheets on a bed. On the bottom, like when you're between the fitted sheet and the flat sheet, you cannot see the flannel sheet and the comforter above that fitted sheet. All you see is the fitted sheet that you live on. And if you weren't really aware that there was a sheet over you, you would just think, oh yes, I'm walking on this fitted sheet, and that is all that exists. And until that flat sheet actually touches you, that is when you become aware. Wait a second, there's this other thing. There's this other thing touching me. And you can imagine people who have paranormal experiences, that's like the flat sheet comes and touches them. They're like, oh, what was that? We all are on this fitted sheet thinking that's all that exists. The fitted sheet on our bed is Earth. That's like the physical plane. The flat sheet is kind of the fairy and kind of the ghost plane, the ancestral plane. Little bit. We'll go into that on the month of the fairies. We become aware of these other realms when those other sheets come into contact with us. And once we are compressed by these other energies and they come into our awareness, that's when we individually are like, hey, wait a second, something's going on. and we become aware. So I'm going to show you the illustration I have right here. So we have the physical plane, the fairy realm, and the plant realm. So this is the consciousness of plants, animals, and fairies. And above that, we have the astral plane and the akashic plane. And even beyond that one, we have the quantum field. But I'm not going to cover that this season. That one's a big one to cover for this season. And beyond that, I was shown before recording this episode, there are different geometric shapes that were given to us to represent the different elements. And the earth element is a cube. And I was asking my guides, and the ones that are kind of helping me translate some of these more esoteric beliefs to demonstrate. So we have here this cube, and on each face of the cube, you can imagine it like a dice, right? So you can imagine, okay, we've got our dice, and on the first side of the dice, we have a 1. We have a snake's eye, right? And that's our reality. On another side of the dice, you have your plants, animals, and fairy spirits. And well, it's more like plants and animals and their consciousness is on one side of the dice. And on the other side of the dice is the fairy spirits. And then on the top, we've got the ghosts. And on the bottom, you have entities and demons. And on the back side, we've got spirit guides and angels and whatever. Most of these other beings can cross over, can go around the edges of the dice and check on us. They can interact with us if they choose to. They can reach out to us. They can speak to us. They can send us messages through our dreams. They can send us telepathy. They can make themselves known to us if they are kind of powerful enough, if they want to. But many times, keeping us in the dark is to their advantage. And so they don't. Those who are curious about these other realms and these other consciousness states, we find ways around the edges of the dice to interact with these other spaces. Now, it's not actually a dice. That's just to give you a dimensional image of how there's these different planes of our physical realm that are interacting. So these are different energy frequencies, different, I don't even know if frequencies, they really are like other worlds that exist in this dream-like space. Animals, for example, are highly telepathic. Many of them can astral travel. They remember their past lives. They're able to like project themselves to their past life family members. They're able to like look at history and to really observe this reality, but they're mostly here as guardians to the physical human realm. A lot of our domesticated animals are here as guardians and protectors. They're here to make sure that the humans go uninterrupted, that we're not messed with for the most part. If you make friends with animals, they will protect you from entities and keep you aligned with your highest calling. And if you make enemies with animals, they will possibly call in some things to mess with you. So it's important to make sure you're making friends with the beings that coexist with us. So you might be asking, okay, well, there's all these things walking through our reality. I've never seen one. I've never interacted. Like, why should I stop doing my everyday life to interact with these things? You don't have to if you don't want to. However, if you do decide that you want to, there are advantages to allowing these other inhabitants to enter your physical reality, because it has to be an invitation. You are in command of your reality. Your physical world will stay the same. It will stay fixed to your perspective, to what you choose to allow into your world. Everything is fixed for your physical reality until you decide you want to open yourself up to these other experiences. And when you do make that choice, you know what? I'm curious. I really, truly want to chase truth. I want to know what's real. That's where I started. I'm a Sagittarius. I was like, I want to know the truth. I am going to go out. I'm going to find out. So there is way too much going on with fairies. Like there's so much history on fairies. There is no way that fairies can't not be real. And I saw them when I was a kid. So that was how I opened the door to all this. But I was very genuinely curious. I would rather know the truth than stay in the dark. I was fearful. I was afraid to interact, but that did not stop my curiosity to know the truth. I am a truth seeker, first and foremost. I don't judge. I don't go around being like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of these things because I'm sure they're just as afraid of me. If they didn't know I existed and suddenly I appeared in their reality, I'm sure they'd be pretty terrified too. So for me, it seemed pretty logical. I put myself in a spirit's shoes. I put myself in a fairy's shoes. I put myself in these other beings' shoes. And I was like, hey, if I was this other being, you know, would I want compassion and understanding, or would I want to be immediately demonized and misunderstood? I chose that I didn't. I live by God's golden rule, and I decide to treat all of the beings of this planet the way I wanted to be treated. And that started with these other invisible forces that come into our reality through our decision to welcome them in. Some people get curious through, you know, going, well, I don't believe in ghosts. And then their friend's like, well, my house is haunted. They're like, yeah, sure it is. It's like a skeptic who has a tiny bit of doubt somewhere in their soul. They're like, I don't know. I don't really believe in God. But yet they will go and challenge preachers and ask all these questions, or I don't believe in tarot. And then they'll go to a tarot reader and challenge the tarot reader. It's because there's a piece of them that doesn't truly believe the BS that they're telling themselves. And so they're trying to find external validation to this limiting belief that is allowing them to exist in this confined reality. And when they are actually presented with expansion, a lot of them actually get really terrified and will be threatened. They're like, you're threatening my entire existence. I'm sorry. You came to me. You came to me for a tarot reading, sir. That is not my fault. You don't want me to tell you the truth? You want me to lie? No. That's not what you're paying me for. So I'm here. None of you are paying me, but I am here to remind you, if you choose that you want to have these experiences with these other realms, the first thing is a consensual agreement. You are making a choice. Your curiosity to explore these other realms is a choice. You can watch movies. You can read as many esoteric books as you want. You can listen to this entire podcast. And unless you are choosing, I'm actually curious and I want to see if this is true, you won't experience anything, because you can either choose, you know what, I'm not really that curious. I'd like to learn how to meditate, maybe do some Reiki. Maybe if she gets there, I'd love to learn how to levitate objects with my mind or set things on fire. That sounds really cool, which we will get there someday. Right now, we are focusing on the basics. Gotta start basic. So yeah, it's just really important that you consent. You want to talk to aliens? Gotta consent. You want to talk to entities? I don't always recommend that one, but it does take consent. You hear that? Takes consent. First things first, how much of your reality do you want to welcome newness in? I recommend, if you are very new to the spiritual world and you're like, I want to keep some grasp over my reality, start with communicating with plants, animals, possibly fairies. It's very basic. That is pretty much in the physical world with a slight extension into a breaking through the veil of the fairy and natural world. So the elemental world. That's a good, safe zone to start. If you've already been able to communicate with animals and plants, and you can download information and you can have a tree literally show you all of time, past, present, future, and you've had talks with trees and animals, then you're ready for a step up from that. But like I said, it starts with consent. And it's also knowing that once you open this door to these other worlds, you're not going to really be able to go back to normal. I mean, technically you can. You can shut things down. You can turn things off. You don't have to interact with those worlds, but it is a lot harder to close the door on it once you've already opened the door on it. And if you want me to go into that, I highly recommend you guys send me some fan mail and be like, hey, next week, you should tell us how we can close the door just in case this freaks us out. But I personally, from personal experience and working with the hundreds and maybe even thousands of clients at this point, I haven't had anybody reach out and be like, hey, I want to shut the door on this. I've had people say, hey, this came in really, really fast and I need some help putting a cap on it or putting some regulators on it. And we will be covering that. So, very basic thing, everything is consent. What you experience is co-created because you are the master of your reality. That is what the physical plane is all about. It is learning just how much of the world that you live in is a reflection of how you think, how you feel, and the actions you take. So, not to get into scripture or to bring any particular religion into this, but I believe this particular perspective of Christ followers is the best way that I can kind of represent things. The golden rule. The golden rule. That is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This golden rule is in like every religion. Literally, it's across all. Even in Reiki, do no harm, right? Do not worry, do not anger, do no harm. Like, it is fundamental to treat others the way you want to be treated with respect. And I think the reason it's a golden rule is it's not just showing respect for your fellow man. It's also extending to the animal kingdom, to the spirit realm, to show respect for everything that could possibly have consciousness, and to also demand respect for yourself. And when we start to apply the golden rule to our own existence, do unto ourselves as we would have others do unto us, right? We start to apply that golden rule, we can start to manipulate the physical plane in a godlike way. And what I mean by that is one of the laws of our reality, based on the golden rule that we just talked about, is karma. And karma comes from, if you don't follow the golden rule, karma comes. Dharma is part of, if you follow the golden rule, you get some rewards. So karma is the negative consequences that come from not following the golden rule, and dharma are the positive advantages of following the golden rule. With that, those who have not inhabited that golden rule into their reality, they haven't learned how that just that one rule is actually the key to how to manifest and how to create blessings in your life. The people who haven't learned that perpetuate suffering in their life. They will create drama through misaligned actions, they will harm other people, which then will create this domino effect where months or years later, someone will do the exact same thing to them. And that saying, hurt people, karma created that. And the people who don't learn forgiveness, the people who don't learn how to take that lesson of, hey, I hurt someone, now someone is hurting me. Why is that? If we understand that we are all one consciousness, that the trees, that the plants, that the animals that we eat, that you watching this, and me, and the spirit guides that are helping me articulate all of this to you, we are all one. We are all existing at the same time through different lenses. It is kind of like when you are training an AI program, you program the AI for a specific task with rewards and consequences. Very similar to what we've got going on here, huh? And then that AI has a bunch of different instances or screens, and you can have hundreds of screens open at once for different options that that particular task can take. I saw an example of this with the video game Pokemon Red to be exact. Someone had taken an AI and was training it to play Pokemon. And in order for it to learn how to play Pokemon properly, there had to be advantages and disadvantages. It got a +1, dopamine hit every time it explored a new area, every time it caught a new Pokemon, and every time it leveled that Pokemon up. It got a negative hit if its Pokemon died, if it had to start over, if it stayed in one area too long. That was pre-programmed, and then the programmer had 100 different instances open for this one AI existing in that 1 minute. It was playing out the game, and it was going different directions. It was making different choices in each instance, but it was all the same like consciousness. The consciousness split itself up into 100 different instances. And that is the best way that I can describe what our physical reality is. Our physical reality is we are a bunch of fractions of one universal consciousness. We are all experiencing this moment in time at the exact same time through different lens, and we are all given different stats, different interests, a different backstory, but we all have the exact same reward system. We all get +1 when we treat others the way we want to be treated, or +2 if we treat ourselves the way that we want others to treat us, and a -1 if we treat others the way we don't want to be treated, or a -2 if we purposefully hurt people just because we can. So that is how our that is how our program has been set up. And those who learn +1, +2, and do that and turn that into their trajectory forward, like I am functioning based off of, I want to help people. You get like +3 if you give people stuff. If you're like super kind, you're like, hey, I'm going to be of service. I'm going to be of service. You get +3. And you get -3 if you're a serial killer. So if you're a bad person, you get a -3. If you're really not just a bad person, if you are like straight up trying to destroy people's lives because it makes you feel better about yours, that's a -3 for sure. So that is the rules of our physical reality, and you can optimize your reality when you understand the basic rules of our reality. So now that you understand that's the basic rule of our reality, and you understand that you are the ruler of your reality. You consent to all experiences, and you might be saying to yourself, well, if I consent to all experiences, why did that really horrible experience happen when I was younger? Why was my dad, why'd my dad beat me? Hmm. I didn't consent to that. I told him to stop. Okay, sure. You told your dad to stop. And, you were a child, but did you tell your teacher at school? Did you tell your preacher at church? Did you report him to an agency? There are certain atrocities that are done to us by the people who want to go and live out their karma, the hurt people who like to hurt people. But that is a test for us. That is a test orchestrated by the system to see, hey, how is this person going to level up their character? Are they going to level up? Are they going to level down? Are they going to stay the same? Let's see what they do in this challenge. You are in a boss battle. Unfortunately, your dad was the boss in that situation. What did you do to beat the boss? Did you play dead and he stopped early? Did you try and man up and look big and scary? Did you just stop giving him reactions and he walked away? Did you say something that made him really question what he was doing and start to have an existential crisis that maybe what he was doing was maybe not good? Whatever the case may be, you survived it. You're here. That's how we're having this exchange. Is that particular situation, you survived it. What information can you draw from that circumstance that will level up your character right now? So I've had a lot of really bad things happen to me. And to get to a place where I was like, I co-created that. That was really hard because I experienced SA and non-consensual adult activities when I was a teenager. And it took me a really long time to even accept that those things that happened to me could have been prevented by me. I forgive myself because I was young, and I was uneducated. I was not informed of the darkness in the world and the types of people in the world and um, the intentions of others. I was very naive and sheltered from my upbringing. But I co-created those circumstances because looking back, I was so protected and so sheltered, and I had this thrill side. I loved horror movies. I would pretend to be abducted when I played games with my friends. I had these I'm running away fantasies. I'd write these short stories about being a young child running away from home and having these really insane experiences. And something in my soul was calling for this experience that repeated. And I think that that was me not loving myself when I was young. I had not fully embodied the golden rule in treating myself the way I wanted to be treated. I had a lot of people in my life that found me very different, and my differences were a threat to them in some way or scared them in some way. And those differences made people question me and treat me different. And so I perceived myself in a very negative way for a long time because I had not been accepted as I was as a child. I had been constantly questioned and dismissed and undermined and put in a room by myself. So I had a really hard time loving myself because if my parents couldn't love me the way that I thought that they should, if they couldn't accept me the way that I was, if they didn't understand me, there must be something wrong with me. Maybe if I was abducted and taken away from here, then maybe I am getting what I deserve. And that was how I co-created those traumatic instances, was how people treated me when I was young taught me how I should treat myself. And only until I really, really came to spirit, to God, really. And I was like, please show me what I'm missing. Why do these things keep happening to me? Only when I prayed for understanding was I shown that that was what happened. It was, I co-created these events because I did not treat myself the way I deserved to be treated. So that is why people co-create circumstances where other people will harm them or they are having bad situations happen to them. It's a lack of love. And when people say, oh, yeah, you're not finding your true love or your divine partner because you don't love yourself. You just have to love yourself. Like, just saying just love yourself, you might think, oh, yeah, well, I really like myself. I think I'm really cool. I'm really talented. I've got cool crystals and I can play singing bowls and I make art and I write poetry and I can rap and I play video games and I used to be a Twitch streamer and I made my own VTuber. I'm a crazy cool chick. I think I'm pretty neat. But despite loving myself, that was not enough to trigger what true self-love is, which is demanding that I be treated the way I want to be treated. And only when I set that boundary and I was like, you know what? I'm not letting my friends into my world unless they're going to treat me the way I deserve to be treated. I want mutual exchange friendships. I want to have people pour into me as much as I pour into them. And if I'm not seeing that, not going to be their friend anymore. If my partner is not meeting me where I need them to, and we have a discussion about it, I'm like, hey partner, what's going on? If that's not being met, clip, gone. I developed a sense of self-worth through understanding that until I treat myself and I set the boundaries with others the way that I deserve to be treated, the way God would, if I really truly had a very strong, empowered father figure who stood up for me, the way God kind of does in spirit, or the way the universe does when we call on the universe for protection. How would I like a father figure to defend me? That is what I give myself. I give myself the pep talk and I stick to it. And I know this was a long lecture to get to, if bad things are happening in your reality, I highly recommend that you shadow work really is just reflection and taking accountability and looking at everything from a very neutral perspective, not judging yourself, not judging what's happened, not condemning anything, just looking at the facts very plain. These things happened to me. They caused these problems. What could have led up to those things happening? I was going out at night. I was sneaking out. I was in chat rooms, talking to strangers. How did that happen? My parents weren't really involved. My parents thought I was really weird. And so they were just happy I wasn't causing problems or talking about the fairies in the yard or whatever it was they were trying to avoid with me. And so they didn't notice that I was sneaking out in the middle of the night and getting myself into really bad trouble. And um that's not necessarily, it is their fault, but it's also not their fault. Like, they did the best they could. I love you, mom and dad. But I just, if I had loved myself, if I had respected myself, if I had a true understanding of what that felt like and looked like, and maybe I didn't have it modeled for me anywhere besides the television. And that's still a record that's still a representation that I could have extracted that wisdom and applied to myself. I forgive myself for all those years where I was very clueless and oblivious to the fact that I truly was not standing up for myself the way that I needed to. But I implore you, if you want to control your reality and you want to be able to fully harness the blessings that this reality has to offer, that is the first thing. Because when you align with full, true self love for yourself, when you are fully aligned, blessings roll in. Because when you know what you deserve and you're like, you know what? I deserve a really nice car. God, universe, spirit guides, bring me a nice car. I want a 7-seater, 2 moonroofs, a Bose sound system. I don't care the color. I just wanted to be able to tow something. Maybe a boat someday. I deserve a boat. I deserve a house on a lake. When you start to know what you deserve, and you don't have to be greedy about it. It's not about greed. It's about what would truly make your soul happy to receive. And also, what will this new thing do for you? So like me being able to have the car of my dream and to be able to tow a boat allows me opportunities to share boating experiences with my children. So like that is what I'm planting I'm planting the seed that in order for me to go out on a lake and be in this boat that the universe has presented me with, that how I'm going to give back, that I'm going to be of service is I'm going to share the experience of boating with my children. I'm going to show my children the excitement of going on a boat, of fishing off a boat, of being able to tread the waves across the lake surface. And that's how I'm going to serve this gift. That nice 7-seater, I'm going to be able to fit a lot of Goodwill items in that car, and I can donate those items. Maybe I'll be able to take our whole family on trips. Maybe that's what I want to do with it. Like having a nice big car, I could take my whole family comfortably many, many hundreds of miles. We could go camping. We could go across state lines. We could go see some national parks. It would be lovely. It would be wonderful. And it's knowing that I deserve the freedom to go camping with my family and knowing that my children deserve the abundance, the experience, to be able to experience the luxuries of this physical plane, that spirit goes, this is a noble intention. That's number 2. So number 1 is the golden rule and embodying that golden rule. Once you understand the golden rule and how the universe works, how not just the universe, how our physical plane operates, the second one is making sure that whatever you do, you are working from an intention from the heart, that every intention you're setting is coming from a place of love, a place of expansion, that it is not something that is rooted in one of these sins. I know that that's really cliche. And for those out there that are, that are not really into the Christian Catholic belief system, I totally understand. But we all have to kind of look at the major sins and recognize that a lot of times, if you look at these sins and the types of people, the quality of their characters that engage in those sins regularly, a lot of those people are not happy. A lot of them are seeking, seeking, seeking. They are not content. They are usually pessimistic. They usually can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't have a lot of light to share. If you're out there and you are one of the many sins and you're like, hey, wait a second, that's not nice to say. I am guilty of having sinned from time to time. And I probably still sin from time to time, but it's about not making it a habit. And it's also being mindful and going, hey, wait a second, my intention shouldn't come from pride, from vanity. My intention shouldn't be for greed. My intentions shouldn't be from wrath. I shouldn't be doing things to harm others or to get revenge on others. I shouldn't be doing things because I just want to accumulate a bunch of useless junk in my house and be a glutton. I shouldn't be doing things because, I shouldn't be wanting this or doing that because I'm lazy and I don't want to do the work to get there. The sins were set up to deter us from being corrupted in how we manifest. So if you are living from a place of sloth and everything you do is just so that you don't have to do much, like I order everything off of DoorDash and I have my groceries delivered to my door because I really don't feel like getting up and getting dressed and getting in my car and driving down to the grocery store and then walking through the grocery store and interacting with people because I really don't want to deal with those people and I really don't want to have to take everything and put it in my cart. I'd rather spend an extra $40 and not have to do all that. And so I never go shopping. I just have everything delivered by DoorDash. Do I actually? No, I go to the store. I go to the store quite regularly. But I'm just saying, if you're living from sloth and your intention when you're starting to learn how to utilize our physical realm, you're like, okay, well, I want a big, nice house so that I never want to leave it. That's sloth right there. Like your intention is, I want this big, nice house so that I have everything I'll ever need and never have to leave it and go anywhere or do anything. And I'm just taken care of. Like, no, have a nice big house to share with people. Have a nice big house so that you feel safe and comfortable and that your life is luxurious, but make sure that you're still working, that you're going out, that you have passions, that you're doing things. You may want to level up in your career, right? Like, I want a promotion. I want to make $1 million this year in my career. Are you doing it for pride? Are you doing it for gluttony? Or are you doing it so that you feel successful and accomplished? So you have this sense of like, look at how much I accomplished this year. Look how far I've come. Look at all the lives I've touched with my messages, with the work that I'm doing. Gosh, I'm so grateful for this affluence that has befallen me through my hard work. It's not because I want to be an influencer. I don't want to be popular. I don't want a million messages in my inbox that I can't even respond to my current email. You guys, like, no, I'm here to connect with you, to share this information, to share the lessons that I have learned in my life that have made my life easier, that have allowed me to elevate myself to a place of I'm content. I'm at peace all the time. I can manifest in this reality. I am able to manipulate the forces around me. I help people heal. I help people activate their gifts. These are the rules and the structures that I have lived by that have allowed me to ascend to the level that I have. And I share them with you freely because going through life, I never had a mentor that took particular interest in me. I took some classes here and there that were quite short. I had a couple of mentors I worked with very shortly, not for lack of wanting to or trying, but usually because I didn't have the funds or because I didn't have the support from my family or I didn't have the resources to be able to continue working with those people. I was always on disability. I was unable to hold down a job for a lot of my life due to my disability. And it was really challenging to grow past that and to be able to become independent and to be able to become empowered in my own life. And I know that if I was gifted those moments of mentorship, which I was, those little tiny moments filled in such huge gaps in my understanding of reality, and I was able to fill in the rest. So those they gave me little tiny little tips that filled in the rest of, that I was able to fill in the rest of the information. And I want to accelerate your guys' understanding of reality so that maybe you can far exceed me. I'm hoping you guys are capable of levitating objects way before I am. But my goal here is, if I can give you tools to navigate this reality and make your life easier and happier and help you make your dreams come true and to actually start to enjoy your life and not be miserable and not be in a state of suffering all the time, that's all I want. And having a little bit of magic in your reality won't hurt either. So, next week, we are going to, now that you understand the rules of reality, you kind of understand that these other realms are layered over us in sheets. They're different perspectives of these different sides of our dimension, and that everything is consensual. So in order to interact with the fairy realm or to interact with the plants and animal kingdom, you have to have a level of curiosity, openness, and dedication to seeing a result. You can't just try it once, sit there for less than 5 minutes, and get discouraged and never try again. If you want to speak to an animal, you must invest your time connecting. You have to build rapport with the animal. Why should the animal trust you with its limitless knowledge of the universe? Why should that animal be friends with you? Why should it open up to you? You weren't talking to it last week. You're a stranger. Stranger danger is real in the animal kingdom too. So just be aware that it does take involvement and devotion and dedication to opening up these other realms and being curious. And after this season where we cover these different realms and I go over different safeguards, different protections in order to keep you safest and the easiest way for you to move through these realms and interact with these beings in the most effective, respectful, and protective manner so that you are having the best, most positive experiences possible. I encourage you to follow along through the rest of the season and enjoy. And if you want more one-on-one time with me, if you're curious more about more advanced practices, or you are looking for a community where you can connect with other spiritual minded individuals who are all looking to ascend, and you want to make some friends, you want to be able to practice with someone and get that external validation that, hey, this is working, that, I had this experience, I want to be able to talk to somebody about it. I can't talk to my coworkers. I can't talk to my family. I'm all alone. If you want somewhere safe to talk about your experiences, I invite you to check out my Patreon, where I am opening up this platform to build a community, which I'm really hoping will grow into just a very welcoming space where we can all practice and ascend together. I'm going to have live healing events, one-on-ones, questions and answers, as well as weekly live ceremonial events. So I encourage you to check it out, see if it's something you're interested in. And if so, please feel free to join us. I would be so honored to have you join our Rainbow Warriors. So that's it for this week. Next week, we are actually going to be talking about interacting with the conscious universe and implementing some different practices that are going to support you in the physical realm and how you can start to manifest your dreams, how you can shift your reality, how you can break patterns in your mind, your body, and some healing practices, because our physical body is a mirror of these other realms, and it's kind of a reverse effect. And I want you guys to be able to start to heal yourselves through these other realms, and we're going to give you some practices for that. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and share the episode if you know anybody who would enjoy it. I hope you have a good day, and let's keep ascending together. Bye.